Hello, my dear survivors. It's Mike. Welcome back to another night where we trace the footsteps of those who vanished and ask the questions that linger long after the credits roll. Tonight, we're walking through Rick Grimes' journey from that bridge explosion to the shadowed halls of the CRM and everything it cost him to stay alive. You know, Rick's story never really ended on that bridge. It just shifted. And the more you look at the choices he made, the silences he carried, the way he protected people by disappearing, the more you start to see a pattern, a plan, maybe, or just survival at its most brutal. So tonight, we're going to explore it all. The empty holster, the years he spent becoming someone else, Michonne's search across impossible distances, the revolution he built in secret, and the heartbreaking truth that sometimes survival means never coming home. There's no rush, no urgency, just us, the quiet hum of theory and care, and the steady unraveling of what it meant for Rick Grimes to survive. So dim the lights, settle in wherever you are, and let's walk this road together. There's a moment in Season 9, Episode 5, What Comes After, that I keep coming back to. Rick Grimes is on that bridge, bleeding out, impaled by rebar, surrounded by walkers and the people he spent years protecting. His hand reaches down to his holster, that instinctive gesture every time danger closes in. But the holster's empty. His python's gone. He's unarmed, dying, and the herd is closing in. And in his delirium, as the blood pools and the world narrows, he whispers, "I found them." Who did he see in that moment? Carl? Lori? Shane? Or something else? Someone watching from above, waiting? The helicopter appears seconds later, and Anne makes her bargain with the CRM. Rick vanishes. Everyone believes he's dead. But here's what I think about. Late at night, when I'm rewatching, what if Rick's survival wasn't luck? What if the CRM had been watching him all along, waiting for the right moment to extract a leader they couldn't afford to lose? What if that empty holster, that absence of the weapon that defined him for 9 seasons, was the first sign that Rick Grimes was about to become someone else entirely? The bridge explosion in Season 9, Episode 5, is Rick's last stand, or at least it's supposed to be. He's leading the herd away from his people, from Michonne and Daryl and everyone he's fought to keep alive. The dynamite's supposed to go off, bring the bridge down, stop the walkers. But it doesn't. So Rick shoots it himself, and the explosion tears through everything, the bridge, the herd, and nearly Rick. We see him fall. We see the fire, and we think that's it. But Anne Jadis, the woman who traded people to the CRM in exchange for supplies back in Season 8, she's there on the riverbank. She's been signaling a helicopter, trying to get herself extracted, trying to escape the violence and chaos of the communities. And when that helicopter arrives, she sees Rick's body washed up on the shore, barely breathing, and she makes a choice. She tells the CRM he's a B, someone expendable, someone they were going to kill for resources. But she changes it to an A. She saves his life by making him valuable. Here's the thing about the CRM's classification system. We've seen it before. Back in Season 8, Anne was taking people, capturing them, marking them, holding them in shipping containers. She nearly took Gabriel. She had a system, as were leaders, people with qualities the CRM wanted. Bs were everyone else, people whose bodies would be used for experiments or resources. Gabriel was going to be a B until Anne started to care about him. And Rick? Rick's always been an A. He's a leader. He's the kind of person every group fights over, from Woodbury to the Saviors to Alexandria. The CRM doesn't rescue people randomly. They recruit. They extract assets. And Rick Grimes, the man who held together a network of communities, who defeated Negan, who inspired loyalty even when he was broken, he's exactly the kind of asset they'd want. So when that helicopter appears, it's not a miracle. It's a retrieval. And Anne's bargain saves Rick's life. but it also makes him a prisoner. Rick's always protected people by carrying secrets. Back in Season 1, Dr. Jenner whispered to him at the CDC, "We're all infected. Everyone carries the virus. Death, for any reason, means you turn." And Rick kept that secret for almost 2 full seasons because he thought knowing would break people, that fear would fracture the group. He told them, eventually, but only when Shane forced his hand. Then there's Shane himself. Rick killed him in Season 2, stabbed him in the field, and Carl had to shoot Shane when he turned. Rick carried that, too, the knowledge that he'd murdered his best friend, that survival meant becoming capable of killing the people you love. And now, on that bridge, bleeding and delirious, Rick's carrying another secret. He saw something, someone, and he whispered, "I found them," before the explosion. Some fans think he saw Carl in his dying visions, a hallucination of his son guiding him. Others think he saw the helicopter, recognized it from earlier sightings, and knew what was coming. Both make sense. But either way, Rick's pattern has always been to bear the burden alone, to protect others by keeping them in the dark. And if the CRM had been watching him, tracking him through those helicopter sightings in earlier seasons, assessing whether he was worth extracting, then Rick's survival is not an accident. It's calculated. The CRM didn't take him randomly. They were watching, and when the moment came, they took him. The A versus B classification is one of the franchise's most unsettling mysteries, and it only gets clearer and more horrifying as the story unfolds. Anne's system in Season 8 was transactional. She'd capture people, mark them as A or B, and trade them to the CRM in exchange for supplies. The As were taken alive, transported somewhere unknown, presumably for recruitment or study. The Bs were killed, their bodies loaded onto helicopters, likely for biological research or resource extraction. It's cold, utilitarian, and it reveals something crucial about the CRM. They see people as assets, sorted by value. Gabriel was supposed to be a B. He was injured, desperate, not particularly useful in their calculus, but Anne cared about him, and she changed his classification, tried to save him by making him seem valuable. She didn't succeed in taking him, but the pattern was established, and when Rick washes up on that riverbank, bleeding out, Anne makes the same choice. She calls him an A. She tells the CRM he's worth saving, and they take him. Here's what we know from The Ones Who Live. Rick tries to escape the CRM early on, maybe within the first few weeks or months of his captivity. He's desperate to get back to Michonne, to Judith, to the life he was ripped away from. But the CRM catches him. They don't kill him, that would be wasteful. Instead, they brand him. There's a scene in the series where we see Rick's hand, marked with the CRM symbol, a permanent reminder that he belongs to them now. And they make him an offer, or maybe it's a threat. If he tries to escape again, they'll destroy Alexandria. They'll wipe out everyone he loves, everyone he fought to protect. And Rick believes them, because the CRM has the resources, the reach, the ruthlessness to do exactly that. So he stops trying. He stays. He becomes Sergeant Major Grimes, a soldier in their army. And he buries Rick Grimes, the sheriff, the leader, the father, so deep that eventually he almost forgets who he was. The theory here is simple but devastating. Rick was always an A. From the moment the CRM first spotted him, maybe during one of those early helicopter sightings in Season 8 or 9, they marked him as someone worth taking. Leadership is rare in the apocalypse. Most people are just trying to survive, to make it through another day. But Rick built communities. He brokered peace between rival groups. He defeated the saviors, held off the whisperers, inspired people to believe in something bigger than survival. The CRM doesn't rescue. They recruit. They extract the people who can help them build an empire, who can lead their forces, who have the intelligence and charisma and ruthlessness to do what needs to be done. Rick fits that profile perfectly. So when Anne changes his classification from B to A, she's not lying. She's telling the truth. Rick Grimes is exactly the kind of person the CRM wants. And once they have him, they're never going to let him go. Not unless he finds a way to make them. Alexandria without Rick is a fracture waiting to spread. In the immediate aftermath of his presumed death, the community tries to hold together. Michonne takes over leadership, but she's grieving, isolated, barely able to function under the weight of losing the man she loved. Daryl leaves. He can't stay in Alexandria, can't walk past the places Rick used to be, so he goes into the woods and stays there, living alone, searching for something he can't name. Carol tries to keep things together, but she's struggling too, processing the loss of Henry, the collapse of the kingdom, the endless cycle of building and losing. And Judith Carl's hat on her head, Rick's gun on her hip, grows up in a world where her father is a ghost. A story told by the people who loved him. A legend she'll never really know. The communities start to fracture. Michonne isolates Alexandria, stops trading with Hilltop and the kingdom, becomes so focused on protecting Judith and R.J. Rick's son, born after he disappeared, that she can't see the damage she's doing. Maggie's already gone, left for Georgie's community because she couldn't forgive Rick for sparing Negan. Daryl's in the woods. Carol's trying to hold the kingdom together as it literally falls apart, the pipes bursting, the walls crumbling. And the Whisperers are coming, a threat no one's prepared for, because the person who used to see the patterns, who used to plan 3 steps ahead, is gone. Rick's absence is more than emotional. It's structural. He was the center, the person everyone looked to when things got bad, and without him, the fragile alliances he built start to dissolve. Carl's letters become Rick's ghost. Before Carl died in Season 8, he wrote letters to everyone he loved, to Rick, to Michonne, to Negan, even. And in those letters, he begged them to stop fighting, to build something better, to remember that survival isn't enough. It has to be more than this, he wrote. And Rick took those words seriously. He spared Negan because of Carl's letter. He tried to build a future where the communities could coexist, where mercy was possible even after everything. But with Rick gone, Carl's vision is harder to hold on to. The people who remain are tired, traumatized, barely able to keep themselves alive, let alone build something new. Michonne reads Carl's letter over and over, trying to find comfort in her son's words. Judith carries it with her, a fragile piece of paper that's supposed to mean something. But words don't stop walkers. They don't prevent wars. And without Rick there to embody Carl's hope, the letters start to feel like relics of a world that's already lost. Leadership costs the person who carries it, even after they're gone. Rick spent years making impossible choices, carrying the weight of every death, every compromise, every moment where he had to choose who lived and who didn't. And now, even in his absence, that weight is still there, transferred to Michonne, to Daryl, to the people who loved him and are trying to fill the space he left. But they can't, because Rick wasn't just a leader. He was a symbol. A person who made people believe that the apocalypse didn't have to mean losing their humanity. And without him, that belief is fragile. It's a door left open just to crack, letting in doubt and fear and the cold realization that maybe survival is all there is. Maybe Carl's vision, it has to be more than this, is just a dream. And maybe Rick's sacrifice, his disappearance, was the beginning of the end of that dream. Or maybe it's the beginning of something else, something none of them can see yet. But that answer? It's not in Alexandria. It's wherever Rick is. And for 6 years, no one knows where that is. The Ones Who Live gives us the answer to where Rick's been, and it's worse than anyone imagined. The CRM, the Civic Republic Military, is the largest and most powerful survivor network left in North America. They control multiple cities, have tens of thousands of soldiers, possess advanced technology and resources that make the Commonwealth look like a small-town government. And they operate in absolute secrecy, wiping out any community that threatens their control, conducting experiments on walkers to find a cure, justifying atrocities in the name of survival. Rick is taken to one of their facilities, held as a consignia, a designation for people extracted from the outside, considered dangerous or valuable or both. And he tries to escape. Of course he does. He's Rick Grimes. He spent a decade fighting to protect his family, and now he's been ripped away from them, held captive by an organization he doesn't understand. So he runs, and they catch him. The CRM doesn't kill him for trying to escape. That would be wasteful. Instead, they make sure he understands the stakes. Okafor, a CRM officer, someone high-ranking and intelligent, sits Rick down and explains it to him. If you run again, we'll find Alexandria. We'll destroy everyone you love. We have the resources. We have the reach. And we will do it. Because disobedience cannot be tolerated. Rick doesn't know if Okafor is bluffing, but he can't risk it, so he stops trying. He accepts his new designation, undergoes training, becomes a soldier, and Okafor sees something in him, the same thing every group has always seen. Rick's a leader. He's smart, capable, ruthless when he needs to be, and he inspires loyalty. So Okafor recruits him, not just as a soldier, but as someone who might, one day, help the CRM become something better. You're the kind of leader we need, Okafor tells him. And Rick, trapped and desperate, starts to believe that maybe this is the only way forward. Maybe the CRM can't be escaped. Maybe it can only be changed from the inside. Here's the pattern. Every group wants Rick to lead. The governor wanted him to submit, to join Woodbury under his rule. Negan wanted to break him, to make him a servant of the Savior's empire. Alexandria wanted him to be their protector, their strategist, their moral compass. And now the CRM wants the same thing. They see Rick's value not just as a soldier, but as someone who can command, who can make hard decisions, who won't flinch when the cost is high. It's the same quality that made Rick dangerous to his enemies and indispensable to his allies. And it's the quality that makes him a prisoner now, because the CRM won't let someone like him go. They'll kill him before they let him leave. So Rick's survival becomes a cage. He stays because escaping means Alexandria's destruction. He follows orders because rebellion means death, not just for him, but for everyone he loves. And the empty holster, the absence of his python, the weapon that defined him for so long, is filled now with a CRM-issued sidearm. It's not his. It doesn't carry the weight of memory, of Shane's death, of Carl's childhood, of every moment Rick used it to protect his family. It's just a tool. And Rick, for the first time in the series, is just a tool, too. Rick, as Sergeant Major Grimes, is almost unrecognizable. In The Ones Who Live, we see him years into his service with the CRM, and he's different. He's efficient, obedient, distant. He leads missions, follows orders, kills walkers and people alike without hesitation. He's shaved his beard, cut his hair, adopted the CRM uniform and all its implications. And he's buried Rick Grimes, so deep, the sheriff from King County, the father, the husband, that when people ask him about his past, he barely answers. He's erased himself. Not because he wants to, but because remembering is too painful, and because the CRM doesn't tolerate attachments to the old world. The CRM's philosophy is simple. The past is gone. Survival is all that matters. And loyalty to the Civic Republic is the only thing keeping humanity alive. Rick's internalized that, or at least he's pretending to, and the cost is devastating. He's alive, but he's not Rick anymore. He's someone else, someone hollow. Thorne, one of the CRM officers, suspects him. She watches him, questions his loyalty, probes for weaknesses. She knows Rick came from outside, that he has a past he's hiding, and she doesn't trust him. The CRM is paranoid, ruthless, and they don't forgive dissent. So Rick has to be perfect. He has to perform loyalty so convincingly that no one doubts him, even when he's screaming inside, even when every mission takes him further from the person he used to be. But there's Pearl, another soldier, someone who becomes his friend. She's kind, steady, and she reminds Rick that humanity still exists, even in the CRM's cold hierarchy. Their friendship is quiet, grounded in shared survival rather than ideology. And it's one of the few things keeping Rick tethered to who he was, even as he becomes someone else. The symbolic weight of the empty holster being filled with a CRM weapon is crushing. Rick's Python was more than a gun. It was a connection to his past, to Shane who gave it to him, to Carl who watched him use it. To every moment, Rick drew it to protect his family. Losing it on the bridge wasn't just about being unarmed. It was about losing the last piece of his identity, the thing that marked him as Rick Grimes, sheriff and survivor. And now, years later, he's carrying a different weapon. It's CRM issued, identical to every other soldier's, no history, no meaning. It's functional, impersonal. And Rick, in a way, has become the same. He's functional, obedient, stripped of the things that made him who he was. The holster's full now, but it's filled with empire, not identity. And that's the cost of survival. Rick's alive, but he's living as someone else. And every day he wears that uniform, follows those orders, carries that weapon. He's further from Michonne, from Judith, from the life he fought so hard to protect. Rick's survival meant becoming what he feared. He spent years fighting empires, Woodbury, the Saviors, even his own darker impulses. He resisted becoming the kind of leader who justifies cruelty in the name of safety, who sacrifices people for the greater good. But the CRM operates on exactly that logic. They destroy communities to maintain control. They experiment on walkers and people. They justify genocide as a necessary cost of preserving humanity. And Rick, trapped in their ranks, has to participate. He has to become complicit, because the alternative is death or the destruction of Alexandria. So he does it. He follows orders. He kills when told to kill. He buries his conscience under duty. And the person he becomes, Sergeant Major Grimes, loyal CRM soldier, is a version of Rick that's unrecognizable to the people who loved him, maybe even to himself. And the question that haunts every scene, is he performing, waiting for a chance to escape or resist? Or has he actually become this person, accepted the CRM's logic, let Rick Grimes die so that this version can survive? The show doesn't answer. It just lets us watch him and wonder. Michonne's search for Rick begins with a pair of boots. In Season 10, during the time jump after Rick's disappearance, Michonne finds evidence that he might be alive. His boots, washed up on a riverbank, marked with an image of her and Judith that Rick carved into the leather before he disappeared. It's a message, faint and fragile, but undeniable. Rick's alive, or he was. And Michonne, who spent years grieving, leading Alexandria, raising Judith and RJ alone, makes a choice. She leaves. She doesn't tell Judith and RJ where she's going or when she'll be back. She just tells them she has to find something, someone. And she goes, following the faintest trail, hoping it leads to Rick. It's an impossible search, and she knows it. But love, in The Walking Dead, has always been a form of navigation. It's the thing that pulls people across impossible distances, through danger and loss, toward each other. And Michonne's love for Rick is the compass she's following, even when there's no clear path. The cost of her leaving is immediate. Judith and RJ grow up without both parents now. Judith's angry, betrayed, confused why her mother would abandon them to search for a ghost. RJ, younger, barely remembers Rick at all, and now Michonne's gone too. They're being raised by the community, Daryl, Carol, Aaron, the people who love them, but it's not the same. Parenthood, in The Walking Dead, is always fractured. Glenn and Maggie were separated when Glenn died. Carol lost Sophia. Lori died, giving birth to Judith. And now Michonne's choosing to leave her children because she believes their father's alive and needs her. It's not abandonment. It's a different kind of love. The belief that finding Rick will somehow make their family whole again. But to Judith and RJ, it feels like loss. Another parent gone. Another closed door. The pattern of TWD couples separated by duty is long and painful. Glenn spent half of season 6 believing Maggie was safe while he was trapped, surrounded by walkers, fighting to get back to her. Carol and Ezekiel were together, married even, and then Henry died, and the kingdom fell, and their relationship couldn't survive the grief. Andrea died trying to stop the governor, believing she could change him, and it cost her everything. Separation in this universe isn't clean or fair. People don't get to say goodbye. They don't get closure. They just lose each other, and then they spend years trying to find a way back. Michonne's search for Rick is part of that pattern. She's following love into the unknown, with no guarantee she'll find him, no certainty that if she does, he'll still be the man she knew. But she goes anyway, because the alternative is living the rest of her life wondering, never knowing, and that's a different kind of death. Finding Rick means confronting what captivity turned him into. When Michonne finally tracks him down in The Ones Who Live, he's not the man she remembers. He's colder, harder, dressed in a CRM uniform, carrying a weapon that's not his. He tells her to leave, to go back to Alexandria, to forget him. He says he can't come home, that it's too dangerous, that the CRM will destroy everything if he tries. And Michonne refuses. She tells him, "We're the ones who live" a line from earlier in their relationship, a promise they made to each other that survival means staying together. But Rick's survival has meant staying apart. He's been protecting Alexandria by becoming someone else, by staying captive, by erasing himself, and now Michonne's here, pulling him back toward who he was, and it's terrifying. Because if he becomes Rick Grimes again, if he remembers what he lost, he'll have to face the choice. Stay in the CRM and keep everyone safe, or fight back and risk everything. The empty holster's full now, but it's filled with the wrong thing. And Michonne's arrival is the moment Rick realizes that survival isn't enough anymore. Love is the navigation, and it's pulling him towards something dangerous. Okafor's vision is the first glimmer of hope Rick's had since his capture. Okafor's not like the other CRM officers. He's thoughtful, idealistic, in a guarded way, and he believes the CRM can be reformed from the inside. He tells Rick about the organization's original purpose: to save humanity, to rebuild civilization, to create something stable and lasting in the ruins of the old world. But somewhere along the way, the CRM became authoritarian, paranoid, willing to commit atrocities to maintain control. Okafor wants to change that. He wants to dismantle the leadership, stop the genocide, turn the CRM into something worth believing in. And he thinks Rick, with his experience leading communities, his moral compass, his ability to inspire loyalty, can help him do it. It's a long game, years in the making, and it requires Rick to stay, to earn trust, to rise through the ranks until he's in a position to make a difference. Rick's skeptical, but he's also desperate. Okafor's plan gives him a reason to stay that's not just fear, it's purpose. It's hope, fragile and dangerous, but hope nonetheless. Rick's recruited not just as a soldier, but as a future leader. Okafor gives him access, brings him into briefings, lets him see how the CRM operates at the highest levels. Rick learns about the Civic Republic, the hidden city where the elite live in comfort while soldiers enforce their will across the wasteland. He learns about the experiments, the communities destroyed, the calculations that justify every atrocity, and he starts to understand that the CRM isn't just an enemy. It's a mirror of everything he's fought against: the Governor's Woodbury, Negan's Saviors, the Commonwealth's class system, but bigger, more powerful, more entrenched. And Okafor's vision, reforming it from the inside, starts to make sense. Because the CRM can't be defeated from the outside. It's too big, too organized, too ruthless. The only way to stop it is to change it from within. And that means Rick has to stay. He has to become trusted, valuable, essential. He has to bury himself even deeper in the role of Sergeant Major Grimes, because that's the only way to get close enough to the leadership to tear it down. The theory here is that Rick stayed because Okafor showed him a way to destroy the CRM. It's not Stockholm Syndrome. It's not resignation. It's strategy. Rick's always been a planner, someone who thinks 3 steps ahead, who's willing to sacrifice in the short term for a long-term goal. And Okafor's plan gives him a framework: earn trust, gain access, wait for the right moment, and then strike. It's dangerous, and it requires years of patience, of pretending to be someone he's not. But it's also the only path forward that doesn't end with Alexandria's destruction. So Rick commits. He becomes Sergeant Major Grimes not because he believes in the CRM, but because he's playing the long game, waiting for the moment when he can dismantle everything from the inside. And for a while, it works. Okafor's alive, the plan's progressing, and Rick's starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, he can find a way out that doesn't cost everyone he loves. But Okafor dies before the plan can work. He's killed by Major General Beale, the CRM's supreme commander, a man who's been watching, assessing, and who doesn't tolerate dissent. Okafor's death is quiet, efficient, and devastating. And with him gone, Rick's left without a plan, without an ally, without hope. He's deeper in the CRM than ever, trusted and dangerous, but alone. And the question becomes, does he continue Okafor's vision, or does he accept that the CRM can't be reformed, that the only option is escape or destruction? The show doesn't answer immediately. It just shows Rick standing over Okafor's body, realizing that the man who gave him hope is gone, and now he has to decide what comes next. The empty holster's full, but the purpose that filled it, Okafor's revolution, the plan to change the CRM from within, is gone, and Rick has to find a new one. Or maybe he's been planning something else all along, something Okafor never knew about. And that's the terrifying possibility, that Rick's been waiting, patient and ruthless, for exactly the right moment to burn it all down. Major General Beale's briefing is one of the most chilling moments in the entire franchise. It's called the Echelon Briefing, and it's given only to the highest-ranking officers, the ones Beale trusts to understand the CRM's true purpose. Rick's brought into a room, shown classified information, and told the truth. The CRM destroyed Omaha. They wiped out a community of nearly 100,000 people because Omaha's leadership was planning to break away, to declare independence from Civic Republic control, and Beale explains why. He says humanity's on the brink of extinction, that the resources aren't enough for everyone, that hard choices have to be made. He shows Rick the math, the projections, the calculations that justify genocide. And he says, calmly, rationally, that the CRM's mission is to ensure humanity's survival, even if that means killing thousands, hundreds of thousands, to protect the millions who remain. It's utilitarian horror, and it's delivered without emotion, without doubt. Beale believes this. He's convinced he's saving the world. Rick's face during the briefing is a study in control. He doesn't react. He doesn't flinch. He sits there, listening, absorbing every word, and when Beale asks if he understands, Rick nods. He says he does, and Beale believes him, because Rick's been playing this role for years now, the loyal soldier, the obedient officer, the man who's willing to do what's necessary. But here's the question. Does Rick actually agree with Beale, or is he performing? Has he internalized the CRM's logic, accepted that survival requires this kind of cruelty? Or is he waiting, calculating, looking for the moment when he can destroy Beale and everything he represents? The show leaves it ambiguous, and that ambiguity is terrifying. Because we've seen Rick make impossible choices before. We've seen him kill to protect his people, sacrifice innocence when the alternative was worse. And Beale's argument that genocide is necessary to save humanity is exactly the kind of logic that could seduce someone like Rick, someone who's spent a decade carrying the weight of leadership, making choices that cost lives. But there's also the possibility that Rick's been waiting for this moment, that he's been patient, ruthless, playing Beale's game until he's close enough to strike. Okafor is dead, but the plan doesn't die with him. Rick knows the CRM's structure now, knows their resources, their weaknesses, and maybe, just maybe, he's been planning his own revolution, something quieter and more dangerous than Okafor ever imagined. The briefing is a test, and Rick passes it. Beale trusts him now, brings him deeper into the inner circle, gives him access to the command structure, and that access is exactly what Rick needs. If he's going to destroy the CRM, he has to do it from the inside, and Beale's trust is the key. So Rick sits there, listens to the justification for mass murder, and nods. And we don't know if he believes it or if he's planning to burn it all down. And that uncertainty is what makes this so tense, because Rick Grimes has always been capable of both. Michonne's arrival at the CRM base changes everything. Rick's been alone for years, surviving by erasing himself, by becoming someone the CRM can trust. And then Michonne finds him. She tracks him across states, through danger and loss, following the faintest trail. And she shows up at the CRM facility, and suddenly Rick's cover the performance of loyalty. The burial of his past is shattered. Because Michonne knows him. She sees through the uniform, the rank, the cold efficiency, and when they're finally alone, she tells him, "We're the ones who live." It's a callback to Season 6, a promise they made to each other after they lost so much. And Rick's response is devastating. He tells her to leave. He says he can't come home, that it's too dangerous, that the CRM will destroy Alexandria if he tries. He's protecting her by pushing her away, the same way he's always protected people, by carrying the burden alone, by making sure they don't have to face the cost of his choices. But Michonne refuses. She tells him she's not leaving without him, that survival means staying together, that whatever he's become in the CRM, whatever he's done, she's not going to abandon him. And that refusal is the catalyst. Because Rick's been surviving by disconnecting, by pretending the past doesn't matter, by burying Rick Grimes so deep that he almost believes he's gone. But Michonne won't let him stay buried. She pulls him back toward who he was, the sheriff, the father, the man who fought for people he loved even when it was impossible. And Rick's terrified, because if he becomes that person again, if he remembers what he's lost, he'll have to make a choice. Stay in the CRM and keep everyone safe, or fight back and risk everything. And for years, staying has been the only option. But now Michonne's here, and she's offering him another path. And it's dangerous, maybe suicidal, but it's also the first real choice Rick's had since the bridge. The pattern here is clear. Rick's always tried to protect by pushing people away. He pushed Lori away emotionally after Shane's death. Couldn't let her in because he was drowning in guilt. He pushed Carl away in Season 4, told him he wasn't safe, that Rick couldn't protect him anymore. He even pushed Michonne away at times, when the weight of leadership made him cold and distant. And now, in the CRM, he's doing it again. He's telling her to leave, to forget him, to go back to their children and live, because he's convinced that his survival requires isolation. But Michonne doesn't accept it. She's not leaving. And that decision, her refusal to let him face this alone, is what gives Rick the strength to remember who he is. Because love, in The Walking Dead, has always been the thing that pulls people back from the edge, that reminds them why survival matters. And Michonne's love is what brings Rick back. Not all the way. Not yet. But enough to start planning, to start thinking about how they can destroy the CRM together. And that partnership, that reunion, is the beginning of the end of the Empire. Because Rick and Michonne, together, are more dangerous than the CRM ever anticipated. The plan to kill Beale is born out of desperation and clarity. Rick's been inside the CRM for years, learning its systems, its hierarchies, its weaknesses. And now, with Michonne by his side, he realizes that the only way to stop the CRM is to destroy its command structure. Beale's the linchpin. He's the one who justifies the genocide, who enforces the authoritarian control, who believes the CRM's mission requires the sacrifice of millions. If Beale dies, the CRM fractures. The officers who follow him out of fear will lose their center. The ones who doubt the mission will have a chance to resist. And Rick, who spent years pretending to be loyal, finally has the access, the trust, and the partner he needs to make it happen. So they plan, quietly, carefully. One mistake, and they're both dead. One hesitation, and Alexandria burns. But they commit. Because the alternative is living under the CRM forever, watching it destroy communities, kill innocent people, justify horror in the name of survival, and Rick and Michonne refuse to accept that. The theory here is that Rick's been planning this since Okafor died, maybe longer. Okafor's revolution was about reforming the CRM from within, turning it into something better. But Rick's revolution is simpler and more brutal. Destroy the leadership, collapse the hierarchy, give people a chance to choose a different path. He's been patient, playing the long game, waiting for the right moment. And Michonne's arrival is that moment. Because alone, Rick couldn't risk it. The CRM would kill him and destroy Alexandria. But together, they have a chance. They can cover each other, escape together, survive the aftermath. So when they confront Beale, it's not impulsive. It's calculated. They get him alone, away from his guards, and they kill him. It's brutal and necessary, and it's the moment Rick reclaims himself. Because killing Beale isn't just about stopping the CRM. It's about refusing to be complicit anymore, about choosing resistance over survival, about remembering that some things are worth dying for. They destroy the CRM's leadership records too. Files, databases, everything that would allow the organization to maintain its control over the communities it's subjugated. It's not a complete victory. The CRM still exists, fractured and leaderless but not destroyed, but it's a start. And Rick and Michonne, covered in blood, standing in the wreckage of the command center, realize they've done something impossible. They've hurt the Empire. They've given people a chance. And now they have to escape before the CRM realizes what happened and sends every soldier they have to hunt them down. The empty holster from the bridge is full now, but not with the CRM-issued weapon. Rick finds a gun, not his Python, that's gone forever, but something close enough, something that's his, not the Empire's. And filling that holster is symbolic. It's reclaiming identity, purpose, the will to fight. Rick Grimes isn't dead. He's been buried, but he's back. And the cost of that return is measured in blood, in the lives taken, in the knowledge that this fight is far from over. But for the first time in years, Rick's fighting for something that matters. Not survival, not obedience, but freedom. And that's worth everything. Rick and Michonne don't go home. That's the most heartbreaking part of their escape. They've destroyed the CRM's command. They've killed Beale. They've done what Okafor couldn't. And now they have a choice. Run back to Alexandria. Reunite with Judith and RJ. Try to rebuild the life they lost. Or stay behind. Keep fighting. Dismantle the CRM's remaining networks so that the organization can never threaten their family again. And they choose to stay. Not because they don't love their children, but because love, for Rick and Michonne, has always meant sacrifice. They're protecting Judith and RJ by staying away, by making sure the CRM is broken beyond repair, by carrying the burden so their kids don't have to. It's the same choice. Rick's always made the same pattern of leadership that's defined his entire arc. He protects by sacrificing himself. And now Michonne's making that choice too. The theory is that Rick knows he can't go home until the threat is eliminated. He's seen what the CRM is capable of. They destroyed Omaha. They wiped out entire communities without hesitation. And even with Beale dead, the organization still has resources, soldiers, loyalists who believe in the mission. If Rick and Michonne go home now, the CRM will find them. They'll find Alexandria. And everyone Rick's fought to protect will die. So they stay. They keep fighting, working with dissidents inside the CRM, dismantling supply lines, sabotaging operations. It's dangerous, exhausting work. And every day they spend doing it is a day they're not with their children. Judith's growing up without them. RJ barely remembers his father. And Rick and Michonne are missing it all. The birthdays, the milestones, the quiet moments of family that they fought so hard to make possible. But they're missing it because they're making sure those moments can continue. They're buying safety with their absence. And that cost is unbearable. Judith and RJ grow up with the weight of their parents' absence. Judith wears Carl's hat, carries Rick's gun, learns to fight and lead because she has to. She's being raised by Daryl, Carol, Aaron, the people who loved her parents and are doing their best. But it's not the same. She asks questions. Why did Mom leave? Why didn't Dad come back? And the answers are complicated, wrapped in sacrifice and duty and the impossible choices survival demands. RJ's younger, less connected to the memories. He knows his father's a legend, a story the adults tell, but he doesn't really know Rick Grimes. And that absence shapes him, makes him quieter, more cautious, aware that the people you love can disappear and never return. The Grimes legacy is one of sacrifice. Carl sacrificed himself to save the community. Rick sacrificed his freedom to protect Alexandria. Michonne sacrificed her presence to find Rick. And now Rick and Michonne are sacrificing their chance to be parents because they believe it's the only way to keep their children safe. It's a cycle, and it's tragic, and it raises the question, is this what survival costs? Is this what leadership demands? Or is there another way? One where you don't have to lose yourself, your family, your life, in order to protect the people you love. Leadership's burden never ends. Even survival is a form of exile. Rick's alive, but he's not free. He's out there, fighting a shadow war against the CRM, and he won't stop until the organization is destroyed or until it kills him. And Michonne's with him, not because she has to be, but because she refuses to let him do it alone. They're together, but they're not home. And that distance, that choice, is the cost of being Rick Grimes. He's always carried the weight, always made the hard calls, always chosen duty over happiness. And now, Even in survival, even in escape, he's still doing it. The empty holster's full now, filled with purpose and defiance and the refusal to let the Empire win. But it's also filled with loss, the absence of home, of family, of the life he fought so hard to build. And the question that lingers, soft and unanswerable, was it worth it? Did the sacrifice save them, or did it just trap Rick in a different kind of prison, one where survival means never getting to live? Back in Alexandria, Judith's become the living embodiment of her father's legacy. She's a teenager now, in the series' final season, and she's wearing Carl's hat, the one Rick gave him, the one that's been passed down through the family like a relic. She's carrying Rick's python, or a gun like it, learning to shoot, to fight, to lead, and she's absorbing the lessons of the people who raised her. Daryl's quiet strength, Carol's ruthless pragmatism, Michonne's refusal to give up. But she's also absorbing the weight. She knows her father sacrificed himself on the bridge. She knows her mother left to find him, and she knows they haven't come back. That absence is a wound, and it shapes everything she does. She's determined to be strong, to live up to the Grimes name, to prove that their sacrifices weren't in vain. But there's also anger, confusion, the loneliness of growing up without the people who were supposed to be there. RJ's quieter, more uncertain. He doesn't have memories of Rick. He barely remembers Michonne. He's being told stories about his father, how he led, how he fought, how he saved people, but those stories feel distant, mythic, disconnected from the boy trying to figure out who he is. And there's a pressure in that, the expectation that he'll be like Rick, that he'll carry on the legacy, that he'll become a leader. But RJ's not sure he wants that. He's seen the cost. He's seen what leadership did to his father, how it took him away, how it made survival more important than family. And RJ's learning that maybe the Grimes legacy isn't something to aspire to. Maybe it's something to survive. Carl's letter becomes the guide for the next generation. Before he died, Carl wrote that survival couldn't just be about killing the dead and the living, that it had to be more than that. And Judith takes those words seriously. She reads the letter over and over, trying to understand what her brother meant, trying to figure out how to live in a way that honors his vision. And slowly, she starts to build something different. She's not just a fighter. She's a protector, a mediator, someone who tries to find solutions that don't require violence. She's carrying her father's legacy, but she's also trying to transform it, to make it something that doesn't cost everything. Rick's survival ensures his children's safety, but it costs them his presence. And that cost is the central tragedy of the Grimes family. Rick's alive, somewhere out there, fighting the CRM, dismantling the empire that threatened Alexandria. And because of that fight, Judith and RJ are safe. They're growing up in communities that are stable, protected, connected. They don't have to face the horrors Rick faced. They don't have to make the impossible choices. But they also don't have their father. They don't have the man who would have taught them, guided them, loved them. And that absence is its own kind of loss. The question the show raises, gently and without answer, is it worth it? Is safety worth the cost of family? Is survival worth the sacrifice of the people who make survival meaningful? Rick would say yes. He's always said yes, always chosen duty over personal happiness. But Judith and RJ, living with the consequences of that choice, might not be so sure, and maybe that's the point. Maybe the next generation gets to question the choices their parents made, to decide if the Grimes legacy is something to carry forward or something to let go. And that uncertainty, that openness, is where hope lives. So here's the theory, the one I keep coming back to. Rick's survival was always about stopping larger threats. It wasn't luck. It wasn't random. The CRM took him because they saw value leadership, intelligence, the ability to inspire loyalty and make hard decisions. And Rick, once he was inside, realized that the CRM was the largest threat the communities would ever face, bigger than Negan, bigger than the Whisperers, an empire with the resources and ruthlessness to wipe out anyone who challenged them. So Rick stayed, not because he gave up, but because he saw an opportunity, a way to dismantle the organization from within. Okafor gave him the framework, Beale gave him the access, and Michonne gave him the strength to act. Every choice Rick made after the bridge becoming Sergeant Major Grimes, erasing his past, following orders, was part of a long game, a strategy that required years of patience, of sacrifice, of becoming someone he hated in order to destroy the thing he feared most. The evidence is in the pattern. Rick's always been a planner. He's always thought 3 steps ahead, willing to sacrifice in the short term for a long-term goal. He spared Negan because Carl's letter showed him a better path. He isolated Alexandria because he believed it was the only way to keep them safe. And he stayed in the CRM because he believed it was the only way to eliminate the threat permanently. Okafor trusted him because he saw that same strategic mind, that same willingness to play the long game. And Beale trusted him because Rick's performance was perfect, so convincing that even we, the audience, weren't sure if he'd been broken or if he was waiting. But the moment Michonne arrived, the moment they killed Beale and destroyed the command, the answer became clear. Rick was waiting. He was always waiting. And his survival, his captivity, his transformation into someone unrecognizable, it was all part of the plan. Or at least, that's the theory. That's what I want to believe. But there's an alternative interpretation, and it's darker. Maybe Rick's just trapped. Maybe there was no grand plan. Maybe he stayed because the CRM gave him no choice, because escape meant death for everyone he loved. Maybe he followed orders not because he was playing a role, but because he'd been broken, convinced that the CRM's logic was right, that survival required cruelty, that the only way to protect humanity was to accept the Empire's terms. And maybe Michonne's arrival didn't remind him of who he was. Maybe it just gave him an exit, a chance to escape a situation he'd stopped believing he could change. This interpretation is bleaker, but it's also possible, because survival does break people. We've seen it happen to Carol, to Daryl, to everyone who's lived through the apocalypse, and Rick's not immune. The question is whether his survival was strategy or surrender, whether he stayed to fight or stayed because he'd stopped believing he could win, and the show, wisely, doesn't answer. It just shows us the outcome: Beale dead, the CRM fractured, Rick and Michonne fighting to dismantle what's left, and lets us decide what it means. Survival and strategy look identical until you see the outcome. Rick's actions in the CRM could be read either way, as resistance or capitulation, as patience or resignation. And that ambiguity is intentional, because in The Walking Dead, choices are never clean. Every decision carries weight, cost, unintended consequences. And Rick's survival, his years in the CRM, his transformation into Sergeant Major Grimes, is no different. Maybe he was always planning to destroy them. Maybe he only realized it was possible when Michonne arrived. Maybe he's still figuring it out, making it up as he goes, hoping that the choices he's making will lead somewhere better. The theory holds together. The evidence supports it. But the uncertainty remains. And maybe that's okay. Maybe the point isn't to know for sure. Maybe the point is to sit with the ambiguity, to understand that survival is complicated, that leadership requires sacrifices we can't always justify, that Rick Grimes is both the hero who saved his family and the man who lost himself trying. And both can be true at the same time. We're back on the bridge now, in that final moment before the explosion. Rick's hand reaches for his holster, that instinctive gesture, muscle memory from years of survival. And the holster's empty. The python's gone. He's bleeding, dying, surrounded by walkers, and he has nothing left to fight with. So he blows the bridge. The fire consumes everything. And for 6 years, everyone believes he's dead. But he's not. He's in the CRM, wearing their uniform, carrying their weapon, becoming someone else. And now, years later, after everything, after Okafor's death, after Beale's briefing, after Michonne's arrival, after the revolution, Rick's holster is full again. Not with the python. That's gone, lost to the river, lost to the past, but with something else. A weapon that's his, not the Empire's. A symbol of purpose, defiance, the refusal to stay buried. The same reach, the same gesture, but the meanings transformed. On the bridge, that empty holster represented loss of identity, of agency, of the man Rick used to be. Now, it represents reclamation. Rick's not the sheriff from King County anymore. He's not even the leader of Alexandria. He's something else, something forged in captivity and resistance, shaped by years of survival in an empire that tried to erase him. And filling that holster is the moment he refuses to be erased. It's not redemption. It's not victory. It's just the choice to keep fighting, to keep resisting, to remember that survival isn't enough if you lose yourself in the process. And Rick, standing with Michonne, dismantling the CRM piece by piece, is choosing to be Rick Grimes again, even if it costs everything, even if he never gets to go home. The question lingers, soft and unanswerable. Did Rick survive because he's Rick Grimes, or because he stopped being Rick Grimes? Did his survival depend on his ability to adapt, to become whoever he needed to be to stay alive? Or did it depend on his refusal to change, the core of who he is that survived even when everything else was stripped away? Both, maybe, or neither. Because survival in The Walking Dead is never about one thing. It's about adaptation and resistance, about becoming something new while holding onto the pieces of yourself that matter. Rick survived because he was willing to become Sergeant Major Grimes, to bury himself, to follow orders. But he also survived because he never stopped being Rick Grimes underneath, the man who would do anything to protect his family, who would sacrifice everything, who would wait years for the chance to fight back. And both versions had to exist for him to make it through. The holster's filled now, but the man wearing it is forever changed. He's not the same person who woke up in that hospital in Season 1, confused and terrified, stepping into the apocalypse. He's not the same person who built Alexandria, who defeated Negan, who tried to live up to Carl's vision. He's someone else, shaped by loss and captivity, and the refusal to give up. And maybe that's okay. Maybe survival requires change. Maybe you can't make it through the apocalypse and stay who you were. But you can hold on to the pieces that matter: love, loyalty, the will to protect the people you care about. And Rick, for all the ways he's been broken and remade, still has those pieces. He's still fighting for Judith and RJ, even from a distance. He's still choosing Michonne, choosing partnership, choosing love over safety. And that's the legacy, not the sacrifices. Not the violence, but the refusal to let the apocalypse take everything. The willingness to keep fighting, even when survival feels like exile. Even when the cost is unbearable. Rick Grimes survived. And the price was his identity, his presence, his chance to be with the people he loved. But he survived. And in The Walking Dead, that's the only victory anyone gets. The door's open now. The holster's full. And Rick's still here, still fighting, still trying to build something better. Even if he's doing it from the shadows. Even if he never gets to see the outcome. That's leadership. That's survival. And it costs everything.